It's yeah. Doing PowerPoint.
Okay.
Very cool.
I'm pointing it out that way or what?
Yeah, your staff. So if you want to get your screen down, you can do that.
Oh.
Back turn the brightness down.
Oh, okay.
So that.
And you probably want to turn off the background. Jerry, probably turn off the background. The background behind the
Oh, yeah.
behind the screen. Here's a mic for you.
Okay.
So click on the mic button, and when it's solid red,
Hello.
it's on.
Did you? Okay.
I think that looks good enough for today.
So is this online as well?
No,
Yes.
no.
Okay.
No, it's
It's
Mike,
recorded.
recording, right? So we can put it on. We can put it online for everybody to see, right, Michael?
Later.
Okay.
Yes.
If she wants to.
Okay.
Right.
Are you working here now? I thought you were at Bellevue High School doing.
My main school is Bellevue.
Oh, so do you float around?
I work pack events as well. So,
Very cool.
but my main job is at Bellevue.
Bellevue High. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
You're gonna do
Do you think we need more? I mean, this looks more than bright.
that. I can't do that.
It's really
It's fine. I think it's good. Yeah, if the audience can see,
Can I get my little
it
pen?
might be fine. Yeah, I think
I think
it's
we
fine.
see the
Okay.
where we see the presentation. Okay, yeah, we can't see the notes. Yeah, so that's good. So
What does it say?
there we go.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our names.
You put our names. Okay,
Yep.
awesome. Great.
Just that.
Oh, it's gonna roll. I'm like that. Yeah. I'm like that table is wobbly. Yeah. Like we don't want to do that.
Finals next week. It's like I like it. No, just in general. Well, this week is kind of easy, but despite that, I'm good. It's managed. Put it that way. So I can do that to call.
People outnumber the outnumber the audience.
Small but mighty, right? So I think no, seriously, for some odd reason, I was coming from Woodridge. And I'm like, why is it taking me like 30 minutes? It usually takes me what, less than 20 to get here. 17 minutes, maybe 15, but it's so foggy out there that it's really like there was a lot of traffic.
It's also like 156.
I know.
Worse, like 156 Bell Red,
Yeah.
worst place.
It's so I know that people registered.
Also Giving Tuesday, it's also the
There's so much going on
the
today.
music award.
Oh, is it? Oh, I did not take time to consider. Jared's off.
I
Yeah.
should have just.
At home watching the award show.
It is after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
But yeah.
That's my joke to you.
Yeah,
Advertising.
yeah,
Provide the country.
Years ago,
Music award.
The awards.
after this presentation,
Yeah.
we'll have the awards.
Yes, exactly.
But the good thing is, you know, people do go back and watch it. So I remember the other education connections. A couple of my friends couldn't come because of, you know, driving their kids around sports,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, they went back and watched it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I was like, okay.
The recordings on their own
Mhm.
time. It is nice to have
Yeah.
that.
And I think people are so used to that now, like,
It is.
you know, like pre-recorded or like Zoom. So to physically get anywhere, I think it's like a mental change, right? Like coming out of COVID. So
Especially having kids and
Yeah.
especially kids. Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's
Because for us, for PEPS,
Yeah.
even with the newborns, we were like thinking maybe they want to continue virtually.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this year, they are like requesting more in
that's
person.
actually nice. So I like that.
I do too.
You have a newborn
I
baby.
prefer
Yeah.
it or in
So,
person.
Very good. Very good.
Yes. Drive, especially in our traffic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wonder if I need to get.
Mindy.
Mindy?
Mindy, yeah.
Mindy. Wonder if because what time is it now?
6:35.
Okay, maybe I should get her. Yeah, we should maybe just like,
Yeah.
like just start, right? Because if we're recording it, you know, we can just record it. And then,
Yeah.
Okay. Let me,
Yeah.
because there's nobody online, right? It's not
Yeah,
like-
it's just recording.
This is the first in-person meeting that you're having with family.
Yeah, we've done a number. Yeah. Better than, yeah. That's just. But we kind of, you know, most of them.
I think we had 15 at the last one. We did
Yeah.
15.
That's great. That's a great program.
We did.
Oh, it's- I-
Yeah.
We did the couples. We're still friends.
Yeah, yeah.
We still get together. Yeah.
Yeah. I want
We're
to-
We're Karen. She said, yeah, same thing, and kids are getting married now, they just making photos.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's just
Neat.
yeah.
Like, little friends.
Yeah, that's now most of our parents, so they were participating in one of the PEPS groups, they are now requesting the plan. It's like, okay, now we need to focus again. And
Yeah, I didn't know PEPS did almost at the level. Yes. I thought it was only early.
precisely during the pandemic, I was leading some of the other groups, I know.
Oh, I don't know what- yeah, I just-
I was just working with other staff members, and they were like, oh, you want to join that, that's because we are bringing the curriculum, so we started on precisely because when the pandemic hit. And so we started virtually all the groups and we just, you know, they
Nice. What age range is that?
we had started like 10, 9, because we are thinking half a 9-year-old. So now, like, let's see, or.
Teenagers, kind of like 9-year-old.
No, this is a nice theater.
Well, it is nice, it's true, but some, you know,
Yeah,
my
there's
reputation. Yes.
Yeah, I love to. Being a counselor, I was always reading books about it, you know, I think it helped because it was also my profession, you know.
Nobody wants to sit closer. We have a lot of seats up front, but no. I'm just- Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Welcome everyone to our Education Connections. And before we start, I just want to say that the session, a part of it will be recorded And towards the end, we'll have some question and answer time for everybody. But with that being said, welcome. And thank you all for being here. My name is Susan Ishiyin, and I am the current president of the Bellevue Schools Foundation. And our mission is to provide and fund the best learning opportunities for all the BSD students through community fundraising and enabling programs like this to happen. And I want to pass over the mic to our PTSA Council, Mindy.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I'm Mindy Carroll. I'm the president of the Bellevue PTSA Council. Together with BSF and BSD, we co-sponsored these Education Connection seminars. I just want to encourage everyone to be part of your local PTA. Your local PTA dues help fund council's activities, including the presentations like this one tonight.
Thank you, Mindy. I think I spoke. So just to go over the agenda, first we're going to explore the valuable resources of every level, elementary, middle, and high school through our Signs of Suicide, SOS, and mental health assist with the mental health assistant team, MHAT. Then we're going to go on to learn how to connect with PEPS and access support tailored to your parenting journey, no matter what the age or stage of your child. And then we'll go on to question and answer. Skipping through, so the Bellevue Schools Foundation, this year, your support made a difference. The total donations this year were $935,131 to support vital programs in the Bellevue School District. Our huge focus is on mental health, where we were able to fund $200,000 allocated specifically for mental health support. And if you like, you can click on the QR code. Every dollar matters, but we can revisit that later. I'm going to click through. And we also have a new program that BSF has started. It's the monthly giving program. And anything, every little thing matters. And if you'd like more information, we definitely have all of that on our website. Education Connections, thank you once again for attending this month. And I would just like to introduce Jared and Allison for our first portion of tonight. So, Jared and Allison.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. All with Mighty Group, right? Yeah. You'll get lots of personal attention. I'll introduce myself, who I am, then I'll let Allison talk. I'm Jared Taylor, coordinator of behavior and mental health services for the district. I lead the mental health assistance team. Been in the district about 27 years, worked with Allison for that long. Actually, she was my internship supervisor many years ago. But she looks so much younger, right? Yeah, yeah. And so we've worked together for many years, and I appreciate doing this with her.
I'm Allison Christensen, and I'm a school psychologist by training. But about 4 years ago, I joined the mental health assistance team because I saw what Jared was doing, and I was super excited about it. I said, how can I switch over to that team? So I've been an MHAT counselor now, like I said, at 2 different schools. So I was at International School for 3 years, and now I'm here at Interlake. But before that, I was a school psychologist for 25 some years in the district.
Great. So we'll have questions at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and save them, and we'll get through, and we'll have plenty of time. It looks like for your questions as well. So we'll go ahead and start off, and we're going to talk about a variety of different strategies. A little bit about what you can do at home. A little something to talk about developmental milestones, when it might be when you might see behaviors being a challenge for your child. I get a lot of questions, and I bet Alice does as well. Is like, I'm seeing these things. Should I be concerned about that or not? And sometimes it's, no, it's fine. It's normal teenage behavior or normal kid behavior. Sometimes it's not. So we kind of put some help up here for that. Well, then we'll talk about what services Bellevue School District can provide around mental health supports and behavior supports. And then talk about community as well. Let's see. Okay. So many of you probably know this already. And did anybody attend the Anxious Generation workshop? Okay, a few people feel nods. So this information is not new. And actually, this was stated out of dates. 2014, it's actually higher. Our local rates of anxiety and depression tend to be about 28 to 30%. So it's pretty significant. And schools have struggled over the years to find, how to support our community. We have some great agencies and partners in our community, and also the access to getting those supports and services is hard. So schools have been kind of the de facto place to provide a lot of those services. And so as schools districts, we're struggling to find out how to do that. And a lot of kids aren't receiving adequate supports. Going from home to agencies is a burden for some families. And so trying to situate those supports in schools as much as possible, where the kids spend a large percentage of their time, is where we wanted to go with that. And as you can see, the BIMAS 2 is a screening tool that we use to look at anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, executive functioning challenges, things like that. And in the past, we've seen rates as high as 35 to 55% in certain areas. So it's a concern. And you wouldn't be here if you probably already knew that. So I want to talk a little bit about some language that we're going to use tonight. And there's a lot of different interchangeable terms, or at least a lot of terms that are thrown around. Social emotional learning, I'm sure you've all heard of that. Behavior, mental health, all those things are kind of commingled sometimes together. And basically, I want to provide a little bit of definition around that. SEL is basic social interaction skills that help us kind of navigate the world. And they provide a lot of protective factors for us about doing well in work. And if we have some sort of negative social interaction, we can rely on our social skills and our connections with others to kind of deal with those challenges. What happens is sometimes those SEL skills are not well developed, or there's bigger issues. And mental health is where some of these challenges become more significant as well. So they're longer term issues. SEL, a student might experience a insult, literally somebody insulting them. They might feel bad for a day or two, but with someone who has more mental health issues, that's a much more significant issue. It's a longer standing issue as well. I use the term behavior a lot as a general term and not in a neutral term, not as a pejorative, like, that the behavior was horrible, things like that. Sometimes I just look at the behaviors happen, and they happen for a reason. Talk about that. There are some kids, and this is why I think behavior is important, is there's some kids with mental health challenges that, as you probably have seen, don't act out. They blame themselves, they kind of withdraw, all those things, whereas some kids are much more explosive. And what we often label as the kids that are internalizers as depressed, anxious, and the kids that are explosive as angry. What I would say is a lot of the externalizers are also anxious and depressed. And a lot of the kids that externalize their behaviors actually do have quite a bit of anxiety as well. So I have found some fun, little things there to add some brightness to this dark behavior. So what is behavior? And again, there's some interchangeability between, mental health behavior, because mental health problems also express in behavior challenges. And the way I look at behavior, it's a form of communication. People want something, they need something, they have feelings that they either need to get rid of or want to share with somebody else. And it's really up to us as the adults to listen to the kids' behaviors and to understand what they're needing, because almost always there's a need behind the behaviors. And if it's a challenging behavior in particular, there's a need. So we have to kind of discover the reasons why. So these are some just general grounding ideas as well. And this is going even further. When I teach classes on behavior management, what I've done in the past, and when I do presentations, I often talk about these ideas, and it comes from a kind of educational perspective, is that when we see kids with social emotional behavioral challenges, mental health challenges, as I said, obviously it relates to anxiety a lot of the time. That's my general go-to, is I assume that's probably anxiety first. The next thing is that there's several reasons why these behaviors might be happening. I always assume first the environment is kind of chaotic, or it's not set up for the right behaviors. So for example, we have orderly rows here, We have, you know, a lot of social rules and things like that. And there's a microphone where I'm up in here on the stage, and there's some social order to this. Those are some of the rules that the environment has been set up to kind of create this type of dynamic. Whereas if there's no rules and you get to sit wherever you want, you can sit on the stage here right beside me, and it might be a little kind of, you know, disruptive and a little challenging. And so sometimes the environment, particularly in schools, if it's a chaotic classroom, if there's lots of noise, if there's lots of interruptions, things like that, it can kind of lead to poor outcomes. Most importantly, probably the number one thing that I tell teachers is that when a student is misbehaving or a child is misbehaving or showing behaviors that are not appropriate for the situation, I always assume first it's a skills deficit. It's called the least dangerous assumption, meaning that if they're misbehaving, they don't know what to do in that situation. And I assume that because it's easy to jump to motivation and to that kid's a bad kid. But as teachers, as educators, and as parents, you know, if we assume a skill deficit, you know, my first assumption is we teach them the right skills, basically. It's a more proactive way of kind of dealing with behavior challenges. There are some students that we've taught them how to behave in the right moment. But when you put them in the environment, they either get too upset, too flooded, or they get forgetful of the right behaviors or the behaviors that are expected. And I call that kind of a generalization or a fluency deficit, meaning that they know what to do, but in the moment, for some reason, they forget. And so in a lot of those situations, we use cueing, a lot of strategies to prompt those behaviors. In schools, these are the kids that will be shown a lot of remorse. They'll maybe hit their friend or show, you know, some sorts of negative behavior. And when you talk to them, they're like, "Oh, I know I shouldn't have done that. I couldn't remember to do that. I couldn't remember to use my voice or my words or things like that." So in the moment, cueing them to use those behaviors can be helpful. And then lastly, I assume motivational deficit last. And motivational deficit means they know what the skill is. They, in the moment, can access the learning around that. But for some reason, the payoff that they're getting by demonstrating the right behavior is not as good as the inappropriate behavior. And so they may use that behavior to get some other need met, whereas the right behavior is not getting that need. So we have to kind of encourage them, produce what are called contingencies, where if you show the right behavior, we'll provide this opportunity for you. So those are three grounding ideas that I kind of want to talk about that. And again, these are, you know, the other ideas. Again, skills need to be taught, really important. I can't force behavior compliance on kids. That's one other thing that I also try to say to parents and to educators, to myself sometimes as well. Even though I want them to change, I recognize that I have to change my behavior in relation to them. Doesn't mean that I give up my expectations or standards or things like that, but I have to try a different approach. If it's not working, I need to try something different. The other thing is when we're dealing with behavior and issues, it's easy for us as parents to get activated, to get upset, angry, frustrated, irritated, just really mad. When we act out of anger, things like that, generally it doesn't go well. So learning how to kind of take a step away, take a deep breath, and act intentionally is really important in the situation. And I'd say getting frustrated is very normal, but maintaining composure is extremely important. Allison, I think you're going to talk about developmental milestones. This is really to give you a sense of what is typical for the ages of kids in school.
Right. I also wanted to start too by just saying parenting is really hard, and just to commend all of you for being out here tonight to learn more tools for your toolkit. I have raised two daughters also. They're launched off to college. So I pat myself on the back. It's a lot of work, but I feel like we got there, mostly done. But just wanted to say, you know, it is hard. And I felt like a lot of it, even though this is my field of psychology and child development, you're constantly learning. They're changing, right? You're trying to keep up with them. Just when you get things figured out with them, they change on you, right? So you can always learn more. That is the thing about parenting. And I think the other main point too is to take care of yourself in order to be a good parent. I always knew when I didn't get enough sleep and I was impatient with my kids, we'd have a rough day. So it's just a reminder to take good care of yourselves too in order to be the parent you want to be. So let's talk about development. Yes, there are developmental milestones of behavior at different ages. So you want to know what's age appropriate to have that developmental fit when you're trying out a parenting strategy. So the example, of course, is reasoning, right? Reasoning with a preschooler doesn't work, right? Works much better when they have more cognitive abilities when they're older. So we know that sometimes a kindergartner or a preschooler just needs to be told no and redirected to something that's more appropriate, right? Distraction and redirection is what works so well. There are those kids that like to have that reasoning, and certainly that's appropriate. But when they're really little, don't get into that, argument with them. But when they're older, then you can negotiate with them. So it helps you know what help is needed when you know their developmental ages. How do I move forward? Is it there?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to look at different ages, and this is done by grades, primary grades. It's a little hard to read, so I'm going to read to you, sorry. But yeah, at the early grades, they're looking for a sense of right and wrong, becoming aware of how others see them. Following rules, taking turns, that's really important. The attention span is short, right? And then eager to please, they want to be the first. That's often a pretty big deal. And so working with them to take their turns is really important, and to not always win, right? You can't always win. Upper elementary, they're working on, more social skills. They want to fit in, they want to be cool. They're talking more, discussing more, beginning to worry about that social acceptance and what their peers think of them. And then also that concrete thinking of black and white. You'll see with elementary kids. I also like to think that, in elementary school and young childhood, you're teaching your values, your family values, and what is like socially acceptable behavior and behavior expectations across settings. So maybe at home, right, you don't have to raise your hand to talk at the dinner table. But when you're at school, yes, you definitely need to raise your hand to be called on before talking. Middle school, we get to, really still they need a lot of guidance and a lot of reassurance. This is where I feel like their self-esteem, their self-confidence is so critical. So you're working on developing that for them. They're starting their reasoning abilities. They become more competitive. Peers are more important now, right? They want to be accepted. They still need a lot of love, a lot of reassurance. But they're, it's tough, those teenage years, right? Your body's changing, puberty's happening. You're just like, ugh. So they're very unsure about themselves, and that self-confidence is really what you want to help nurture for them. And I think a good way to do that is by, and a lot of you probably know this already, but giving them a little more independence, letting them have those household chores, right? Taking care of a pet, just anything to boost their self-confidence and responsibility. Volunteering is really great to do with middle schoolers. And then of course with high school, yeah, they still need our guidance. But you want to help them become better problem solvers, and also to take risks, which is really important that they become their own, making their own decisions, but also have you there to get advice from. But I also felt like when I was parenting my teenage daughters that I really tried to listen more than talk, which was a real switch, right? Because in elementary and middle school, you're giving so much advice. And then to take a step back in high school and to really let them do pros and cons and think about it, just kind of ask some guiding questions. So then they feel like they've come up with what they want to do about the social situation. With girls, there's a lot about the social issues. And I'm sure with boys there is too, but yeah, my girls there was. So in high school, again, they need our guidance, relationship building, relationship skills, and then that independence from their family is normal. Parents are still very important, but again, they want to be with their friends so much. And I also feel like that's a great time for high schoolers to have part-time jobs, again, do volunteering in the community, encourage them to maybe get their driver's license, which gives them that sense of freedom and independence, or use public transportation. But anything that kind of helps them gradually take steps towards independence, and taking some more risks is really important when they're still living at home with us and getting ready for their young adulthood. Okay, so we're shifting over now to anxiety, and there's a lot on this screen, but what does anxiety look like at home? So these are some categories, right, that you would see your child or teen shows some anxiety. So emotions, right, those really mood swings happen a lot. Interpersonal social issues happen. That negative self-concept, shutdowns, withdrawal, avoiding people, places, situations. When someone's anxious, they oftentimes have a lot of avoidance behaviors. We're going to talk more about that. Sometimes they want to be only on their devices, right? They feel safe communicating that way, but not so much in person. That is the social anxiety issue that I saw a lot of after the pandemic, but I do think kids are getting more healthy now and we're seeing less of that, but there still is some social anxiety because those key years for some kids, they miss those developmental years of having those social skills. Sleep is a big one. Oh my goodness. Sleep problems can cause a lot of anxiety, and anxiety can cause a lot of sleep problems. So it's kind of a cycle there. We see anxiety at school with refusals to do schoolwork, refusing to come to school. That is a major problem that we work closely with parents about. It's a kind of a team relationship that we can help you with, but it can become such a problem that it does sometimes happen. Compliance to parents' requests. When there's anxiety, it can be more challenging. And then perfectionistic tendencies. Boy, I do see this too in working with my students. Sometimes their anxiety is really about performance. There's so much competition out there, and I think so much pressure for our teens these days. So taking risks is hard for them. And then sometimes they're very perfectionistic and very hard on themselves. So here at school, when we identify an anxiety problem, we're looking for these things. It's a long list, but just to highlight a few: increased nurse and counselor visits we see with our anxious students, reassurance, a lot of disengagement in the classroom, activities, sometimes excessive phone use, sometimes aggression, refusals to come to school. That's when it gets to be a major problem, right? Because it's like with anything, if you have a degree of severity. So that is what this slide is about. When is a mental health issue a concern? So we talk about it being when it adversely impacts the person's daily functioning, right? That's when it's time to get some help. So if there are academic issues, social problems, physical health is deteriorating, and when they're not engaged in the normal or their typical, what they did in the past with play activities or how they spent their time. Like behavior, it's a spectrum. We all kind of know normal behavior, and then there's mild behavior to major behavior issues. We all have positive and negative traits, right? Sometimes we pass some of those on to our kids, which we're a little bit like, oh, sorry, I got that one. And then we also know that mental health is culturally bound, because we know that we have so many students from different cultural backgrounds, and we try to be culturally sensitive. And we really focus on the well-being, the overall well-being of the whole child, and then that the human experience is to have a range of emotions. Okay, so this is also what we want to talk about, is give you some strategies or ways to help at home. So we're going to go over understanding the cycle of avoidance, which is huge for individuals that struggle with anxiety. Not accommodating those avoidance behaviors. Jared's going to talk to those. We teach relaxation and emotion regulation skills. Emotion regulation is being able to modulate your emotions, right? So instead of extremes, it's helping kids learn. And we start this at an early age in elementary school with teaching them breathing techniques or calming down techniques or ways to use their words. So emotion regulation skills is really key right now in teaching behavior and appropriate responses when you're having, emotions, intense emotions. Modeling and demonstrating positive coping, that's really important. Moms and dads, I only see moms here. I wonder why that is. But definitely our modeling is so important to our kids. They look to us to see how we cope with stressful situations. So don't think they're not watching. They really are. That whole line about, don't do what I say, do what I do, or whatever that is, right? Reverse what I'm saying. Thank you. Do as I say.
Not as I do.
Right. Thank you. So it's the reverse of that. They really are watching us. Again, talking with your student, making those opportunities to really listen to them and what they are, dealing with and might need some advice and some guidance. And then we talk a little bit on kids and tech, because that is a big issue, and that probably should be a separate presentation. But yes, we have a little information on that for you. So now I'll hand it back to Jared.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Allison. Just to pause for a moment, we're going to focus in on anxiety quite a bit, because anxiety is a major driver of a lot of social emotional behavior challenges. Depression and anxiety often go together, and they share some common etiology. But we're going to focus mostly on anxiety, and especially in relation to the Anxious Generation book, we're going to again focus in on how to support kids that are anxious and things like that. So one thing that this is a big concept, and I'll try and do it justice in a few minutes, is that I like to think of anxiety in terms of an anxiety monster. And the more that you give in to anxiety, the more it feeds it and the more it grows. And what happens is, when we are approaching a situation or person or a thing or object, whatever, that triggers our anxiety, if we run away from it, what does that do? It reduces the anxiety pretty significantly. We are running to safety. So when we approach that anxiety provoking situation in the future, what do you think is going to happen? We're gonna run away real fast. Or we might go into fight, flight, or freeze, those types of things as well. And so the simple treatment for anxiety, it's very simple actually, is to face your fears. Okay. Right. If that actually worked, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But the idea is that there's many ways to help kids face their fears as well. And as parents, one of the things that is, I think, really, there's a TED Talk that I use in one of my groups that I co-facilitate. And it's a guy who wrote the book, Breaking Free from Childhood Anxiety and OCD. It's a great book. I think it's in our resource list if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's a very parent-friendly book. And he talks about parents, the natural instinct is to protect our kids. And part of that comes from the fact that we're mammals. Mammals are born helpless. They need other people to take care of them, or other animals to take care of them. And so when a child cries, baby cries, or an animal cries, mammal cries, it's an alert signal to the parent. You need to step in and help me. So what happens if we extrapolate this, if a child is facing a anxiety-provoking situation and they're scared, and we see that as parents, how are we going to respond? What's our natural inclination? To rescue. We want to protect our child. It is literally hardwired in our brain. It's a survival of the species thing. It is extremely hard to recognize that. And I think when we talked about the Anxious Generation book, I think the author, David Haidt, talks about overprotection. Is that somewhere along the line, we've learned that we need to overprotect our kids from insults in the environment that maybe are not good, but not deadly or not severely traumatizing. I think we try and protect our kids a little bit too much sometimes. How much that is, varies, but there's some truth to that, is that we do try to protect our kids from all forms of disappointment, from bad situations. And what that says to kids is that we don't think that you're able to handle this disappointment. And so we try to swoop in and rescue and fix their problems for them. What this happens is this doesn't allow them to be able to struggle and figure out how to regulate their emotions and solve the problems on their own as well. So in my work with kids that show school refusal, so they're not coming to school, we often see a lot of family accommodation around that kids will have, internet 24/7. They won't force them to go to school even if they've got they say they've got a headache or something like that. And again, it's one of those things from a evolutionary perspective. The kid is in pain. There's definitely emotional pain there, and we don't want to see that. So we don't want to force this on them. And so when we force them to school, they're going to show a lot of emotional pain. So the idea really is that we want to try and break this cycle of avoidance. And as parents, we have some help with that. We can help with that a lot. In terms of avoiding, it might be avoiding people, places, and situations that elicit. So not avoiding those types of things. And also recognizing that sometimes we can push too far. And part of it is not trying to teach a kid to swim by throwing them in the deep end of the pool. You want to provide water wings or maybe get them used to the water, those types of things, not automatically just shoving them into the water as well. I should there's a meme that I love on this one. There's a guy throwing a kid into the pool, and the kid's thought bubble says, "Dad, I can't swim." And Dad says, "Not with that attitude, you can't." So yeah, anyway, that's bad. That's bad parenting. So there's a lot of different things here. So I'll talk a little bit about this one. So how do we not accommodate avoidant behaviors? Lots of times we order for kids at a restaurant. Might pull kids out of extracurricular activities if they're having a tough time, through sports or plays or band or things like that. Picking up a child from school midday if they don't feel good, if they're feeling emotionally down. Mental health days sometimes we do that. Changing family plans to avoid the stressor as well. That happens a lot. I see families avoiding situations, not going to specific places because the child is having troubles with that. And then this one's big: solving social and academic issues on behalf of the child. So what I try to do as a parent, it's hard because I want to reach in. I'm a male. I also want to reach in and solve the problem. But I often talk my kids through it. Like, well, what do you think should happen? And so we work it through as opposed to me trying to call that parent or call that kid or call the teacher or whoever it is. I try to kind of help them with that. So changing gears just a little bit. There's a relaxing hedgehog. I like hedgehogs. They're cute. One strategy that is really helpful. It works quite well. It's getting kids to do it. It's sometimes hard, but it does work. Is using emotion or regulation strategies. It's when you're doing these, it's actually physically incompatible with the stress response. So if you're deep breathing, what it's doing is it's causing our neurons and synapses to change how we respond to the stressor, and it's engaging different nervous systems to kind of calm us down a little bit. Sometimes we use what's called a fear thermometer. If I want to get a sense of how anxious a kid is on a scale of 1 to 10, it's kind of like a pain thermometer. 1 is totally calm, not at all anxious. 10 is like panic attack, curl up in a ball on the floor. It helps me to understand how much I can kind of ask of the kids that I'm working with and with my own kids as well. It also helps me know when, like, if they're at about a 5 or 6, it's time to start using some relaxation strategies or emotion regulation strategies as well. So I think Allison mentioned that particularly with younger kids, distraction is a great one. Works really well. My wife would have tons of things in her purse when we're out in the community. I see some laughing out that one. Is that there's tons of little games and toys and activities and things like that you can pull out if things start to go sideways while you're out in the community. Pull those out, and that's a nice distraction tool. It can kind of get things back to where we want it to. Positive self-statements, they definitely help. can definitely help, feel better about oneself. There's tons of different types of relaxation strategies, progressive relaxation, deep breathing, yoga, mindfulness. There's all sorts of different things. And then, you want to jump in at this point, or you?
Sure.
Okay, we'll let Allison talk about some part.
I think I changed the name.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Okay. So we talked about modeling and demonstrating. So here's what parents can do, right? This is really important too. So this is a good long list here of things to do. Routines are really important. Kids do need structure and routines all through, I would say, childhood. We know about active listening and validating feelings. I think active listening is really important to, I think we're so distracted these days, aren't we? Multitasking and all of that. But I think it is really important if you think your kiddo really needs your attention to try to provide that without being on your phone, without being on your laptop. I really try to close my laptop. When my kid comes up and talks to me, I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention to you now, So it is something we as adults really need to do. It's also good for your marriage, which is good for your kids. So always assume positive intent, right? We really try to work at that too, to figure out what behavior is about, but assume positive intent. We model being social. I think it's really important to also model for kids, healthy sleep habits, healthy eating habits, healthy tech habits. If we want our kids to have those, we need to show them. Using assertive communication, talking about your own feelings. And maybe if you're struggling, what are some coping skills that you use? So I really tried to do this with my kids, where if I was frustrated, I said, okay, I'm taking a timeout now because I'm really angry and I will talk to you in about 10 minutes, but I'm going to my room with a magazine. And I did that a few times when I was so upset with them instead of yelling at them. And that was one of the most helpful things I learned as a parent, was not to engage in that argument, but to say, we're both too upset right now. I'm taking a timeout. So instead of putting my kid in a timeout, I put myself in a timeout. They were like, what? It's a lot easier than trying to get them into it, sit in that chair. So just a helpful idea when you have little ones that need timeouts. Limiting the screen time, that's always helpful. Having family dinners, there's some stats out there too that say more families that have communication time over family dinners have healthier kids, raise healthier, happier, well-adjusted adults. That was an interesting fact I heard the other day. Makes sense. Because that's a good way to bond with them, a good way to keep relationships and communication open. Oh my gosh, we got to speed up. Okay. How to talk to your kid when they won't talk to you. Oh, this is hard. Again, a long list, but again, helpful ideas. Sometimes they need time and space. Also using open-ended questions. So instead of something general like, tell me about your day, ask them a specific question that they can't say, meh or fine to. Okay, so ask them, how was lunch? Who did you spend lunch with today? What did you do during science class today? So just try to ask more questions that would get to more details. And then what I really like too in teens is that non-direct interaction. So sometimes that's just too intense for teenagers, that you feel like you're coming on them, you're going to lecture them. So talk to them while they're walking, playing a game or puzzling, reading a book together, and then talking about the characters and how they problem solve. And then also with your teen, you kind of have a captured audience too. When you're driving a car with them and driving them to their activities, is a good time to just kind of check in with how they're doing. So Tech and Kids, if you don't know about this resource, this is awesome. This is called Common Sense Media, and it is well worth looking into. It was one of my favorite websites that I went to when I had my kids asking if they could watch a movie or something like that. I would go here and see what the rating and age appropriate level was. It has what kids rate it for and what adults rate it for. But it was super helpful when my kids wanted to see certain movies, or if they wanted to get a book or a video game. That was very helpful.
I can vouch for that. My kids would often come to us and say, Common Sense Media says this. What do you think? If they want to watch a movie.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so talking about school-based resources, we have a lot of ways that we help our students. This is school-based, and I just wanted to say that we have 5 community agencies that we partner with. And they are, let's see if I can name them all. YES, Youth Eastside Services, and is in a lot of our schools giving one-on-one counseling support to students. We have Consejo for our Spanish-speaking students. We have ARCS, which is Asian Referral and Counseling Services for Asian-speaking families, lots of different languages they can do with the home language for families, and we refer them to there. And then we have Sound Mental Health, and we have CMAR. But YES, I would say, is in a lot of our schools, and then I think Sound is also in some of our schools. Yeah. So we also have the counselors, school counselors. They do brief counseling. They do solution focused, and they do a lot of crisis, but they are also there to do more scheduling. And of course, in high school, they're doing more college and career things. So that's why we also now, which is so awesome, which Jared said, is we really wanted to bring the services to our students in the schoolhouse. So now we have our mental health assistance team, the MHAT team, and that is direct counseling support for students. We do screenings for suicide. So we definitely do our suicide prevention curriculum, but then a big part of our job is doing counseling support for kids that are really wanting to get some help and make some healthy changes. And I think it's a great time. Adolescents, middle school and adolescents, it's such a great time because they're increasing their self-awareness and they are able to make some changes and feel some agency. So we talk about friendship, we talk about anxiety, social anxiety. I've had a lot of students improve with social anxiety in working with them. Another thing that Jared offers, which I think is really cool, is our parent group for students with school refusal. That happens 3 times a year. It's a small group, it's online. And then what's also really neat is we have Incredible Years parenting group, and it's coming soon. They're doing some training, but that will be for young children, early childhood age children. And we also have ways that we give intensive school support. And these you need to work with your guidance team in your home school. But if you have a student who's really struggling academically, socially, behaviorally, these might be what your guidance team talks to you about. And that would be you reaching out to your high school counselor, middle school, or elementary counselor saying, I have concerns, or the teacher might make the referral. And you come together as a team and you brainstorm what are some levels of support. So we sometimes do 504 plans. You've probably heard of those. It kind of levels the playing field for students who might have a disability or suspected disability like ADHD or anxiety. The teacher does accommodations in the classroom. Special education, you need to have an evaluation and qualify for. But then you can have accommodations and modifications, and you have goals, and every year the IEP is reviewed and progress is tracked. We'd have social skills classes, and then we also have social work who would deliver some services, some counseling services if the student is on an IEP and qualifies in that area. And then for our high school, secondary only, we have the Rise and Summit programs, but those are for major issues with like school attendance.
Yeah. I'm going to skip through this pretty quickly because I want to make sure that our guest has time to talk about PEPS, which if you don't know about PEPS, it's an amazing resource. So I'll just basically say about signs of suicide. It's already advancing for me. It's already thinking about is that you might see your kid. We're in the process of doing that next semester. We already did it for the fall. And it's really our suicide prevention curriculum that talks about acknowledging that somebody's struggling. We teach kids to acknowledge that in themselves and others. We ask them to use caring statements to care about that. And then most importantly, to tell a trusted adult that this person is struggling or I'm struggling so they can get help as well. If you have more questions about that, you can certainly ask about that in the Q&A part. Just briefly at MHAT a little bit more. I'm going to skip a little bit of that. The MHAT really is, the idea is we want to identify students who have needs. And so by doing the BIMAS 2 screener and some of the suicide screenings, that's how we identify students with needs. We want to provide them with greater access to services, which is why the district has invested a lot of money in the MHAT counselors and be able to provide short-term intensive supports for kids. And then in the team, we use what are called evidence-based practices, which are scientifically proven strategies to help kids get better. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of those strategies. So we want to increase the outcomes for kids as well. And these are the counselors for each secondary school. We do have 4 of us at the elementary. We have a slightly different role there. But if you're, have any questions, these are the staff there to ask. And then lastly, for our part, and Chris, you can speak up if you want to talk a little bit more about this. Care Solace is something that our district has invested in. And it's a kind of a referral service that it's for anybody and any family member connected with the Bellevue School District. So my family could use it. Any member of your family, extended family could use this as well. Basically, if you have a need for, some sort of mental health services, you can call them or talk to them on their website or use their website and describe what your needs are, what your insurance is, and their job is to go find you counselors that have open available spaces and get you initially hooked up with them. Well, it's a great service. And we kind of rolled that out this year, last year, that's right. So I'm going to welcome, it's Gloria, right? Yes, Gloria. I always bad with names. And she's going to talk about PEPS, which is a wonderful parenting program. We've been talking about supporting kids, but now we're going to talk about supporting yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Martinez. I use she, her pronouns. I am the outreach manager for the program for parents, adolescents, and teens, outreach manager. And I have been working with PEPS in different areas. PEPS has been in the Seattle area for more than 40 years, providing a lot of peer support for parents. Some of you, I'm not seeing that you are nodding, so you know and recognize. We were previously known as a program for early parent support. That was what we were trying to do. But we were seeing that a lot of need for different stages, not only for parents of newborn babies. So we create different programs to support the parents in the different transitions in their lives. What we wanted to do is precisely just to connect families, provide that support in the community. So we want to have resilient families, connect communities, and something that we work a lot is to have equitable outcomes. So our values like equity, inclusion, community, authenticity, because we don't know everything, we don't have all the answers, but we are trying to learn, and that's why we are trying to innovate daily in all of our programs. We have now more programs since parents are expecting parents, the newborn groups, the second time around parents of adolescents and teens. We have affinity groups for LGBTQ and A+ families, single parents, and working parents. And we are connecting with different organizations, and we have more than 17 partnerships that help us to provide these programs to those communities that usually we historically didn't reach. So that's what we wanted. We advocate for equity policies in Washington. We provide all the information to parents of what are those kind of policies and how are impacting all our families. So we are always trying to improve all the programs. One of the things that we are trying, for example, is in all our curriculum, we are identifying if we are using appropriate language, if we have appropriate language for all the identities, all the communities. We have flexible prices so families can decide what kind of fee they are going to pay for the program, depending on the needs of the families. And even we have zero fee fees for those families that really need more support. So what we really need and want more than that is that we can provide this program to more families in the communities. And that's why we are here, just to provide you a little more information. I'm going to talk specifically about the program for parents of adolescents and teens. Most of our parents, especially if they participate in PEPS programs, they were always asking, hey, you help us when we have the little one, but now that our kids are changing, we are still feeling a little bit isolated, lost in this journey. And it's true, because when we have little ones, we started to connect even with friends when we are having play dates. So we have more connection with other families. But when our kids are growing, we are more busy. Our kids are more independent, or they don't want anymore the play dates, even they don't want to say play date, is hang out, or different situations that even allowed us to be more centered in ourselves and in our issues. And that's the other thing. Sometimes when we were talking about our kids' situations, we were having a little bit more of confidence to talk with other parents. But when our kids are growing, we feel a little bit hesitant to talk about those challenges. So we are always having this knot in our throat that we don't know what to do. And that's why we create this program. I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old girls, and I'm a psychologist. I have been giving a lot of workshops. I know all the theory, and I'm still, every time that I'm leading a group, I'm learning a lot, because that's what we are doing in our programs. Like a lot of our parents are saying, theory is, we can find it in the books, we can find it on the internet, but just really connecting that theory with our experiences and the real world is different, And I can say that I know all the information, but just sometimes managing situations is difficult. Like before you were saying, sometimes we are reacting emotionally, we are involved. So that's what we are trying to support those kind of situations, provide a space of like more confident space that you can talk with other parents and feel that you are not alone. Well, one of the things that we are providing is two kind of series. One is 9-week series that provides more wide of information and topics. But we know that for some families it's a little bit difficult to just meet for 9 weeks. So we create a 4-week series that is focused more on a specific theme. But we have more practice of specific topics during those 4 weeks. And we are also providing workshops now. So we have more than 16 topics that some of the most popular are effectively communicating with adolescents, the adolescents' brain development, mental health, that involve a little bit of some of the topics that we just discussed before. The social and online world, that there are those two topics that are very important for parents on how to manage virtual and screens, and identity development. So we have more than 16 topics for specific needs. We are based on a specific framework for youth wellness, and we talk about 5 protective factors of family wellness. And this is the base of all of our program. And in each of our meetings, we are always focusing on each of these factors. So what we are providing is parental youth and resilience. So parents can identify what kind of competencies and skills they have and what kind of skills they need to work on. And in that way, they can identify that in their youths. The social connection, that they can find people that are living same things, and feeling that they are not alone, that their kid is not the only one that is having those behaviors, and that you are not the only one that is having those thoughts or those feelings or those reactions. No. We provide information about the cognitive and social and emotional competences that we need to have as an adult and what is happening in our kids. The same with all the changes in the development and how it's affecting their behavior. And lastly, something that we are always providing is the information about resources. Sometimes it's difficult to know when we need the resources and when to ask for help. No? So we are always providing that. At the end of our sessions, we are always providing handouts with those resources and the theoretical information that we discuss during our groups. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of information. What do we do during our sessions? So the structure, like I said, it's focused on those 5 protective factors. The first one is that we usually start our meetings sharing the highs and lows. And I know that for a couple of people, they are like, oh, this is always the usual, why we have to do that. First, we are always focusing on the negative side. That's totally normal. Our brain is always in survival mode, checking what we have to change. And sometimes we are focusing on the negative things that our kids are doing. So it is important that we have that exercise to focus on the positive side of things that we are doing and things that we are having or that we are observing in our own kids. And the second part that is the challenging and the lows, it's also a moment that we can just talk about those difficulties that we are having with our kids without the emotional part, because we react when they are having those emotional or behaviors, and we react in the same way. So just talking about it in a more neutral environment help us to identify in a different way the situation. And the other thing is something that we were talking about is the active listening. As an adults, we are always trying to solve the problems of our kids. We don't really listen. We are always checking what do we have to say. And when we are practicing this during our sessions, the rest of the parents, we are just listening. We don't have to judge. We don't have to solve the problem. And that is an exercise that we need to do to practice at home. That we need to ask more questions instead of just jumping in with a solution. No, so that's one of the things that most of the parents in our pre-surveys, they don't focus on, but that's one of the most important parts of the meeting that the parents value the most at the end of the groups. Like I said, we have more than 16 topics that we create, and we have different activities, group activities, individual exercises, prompts, because like I said, what we are learning is more through the experiences that we are hearing, exchanging that information during the sessions, and not only just reading the theory. It's just connecting, like digesting really how we can do that, how it's working in other families. Maybe it's not working in my family, but you can identify things that are helpful for you or not to have in your toolkit. The break and the social time, we are always, even if it's a virtual group, we try to have our breakout rooms. For the 9-week groups, we have the 5th session. It's parents just meet without the leader. They usually know how to start with the highs and lows, and just sharing the highs and lows, they start to connect, and they started to make that kind of exchanging of experiences and even exchanging resources that they have in the community. So yeah, that's what I was explaining about the highs and lows, that it's very important for us to keep practicing. And one of the things is just to be thinking also in how we can learn from others. It's something that when we are listening, the experience of other families, you can learn from that. And even when you are just sharing your own situations, you are seeing and hearing different things, positive things that you are doing. So that is that you are not only, because I think that, like I said at the beginning, we are always focusing on the negative side, not only for your kids, but as moms, we always have this backpack full of guilty that we are always saying what we did wrong, what should I say, or something that I should do better, but we never focus our attention on the things that we are doing great. And just being here tonight is one of the things. Now that you are just showing that love that you have for your kids, that you wanted to find all the resources that the community has. This is just an example of a 4-week thematic path group. So we have different groups for different ages, different topics related with mental health, the social world of the kids, how to connect with your twin. That has more like the general and basic information like brain development, foundations of parenting, because just changing gears, it's difficult. Like we said, it's just like now is trying to give the driver classes to our kids. So now they have to start driving their car or their lives. and it's not easy to sit at the others share and just seeing what they are doing. No, so it's difficult, but it's a process, and we cannot do it alone. Changes are very, very difficult. So when we are doing it with another person that are having situations similar that the ones that I'm having at home, that is helpful, and that's why I believe in this program. I'm seeing that from the families that are attending our groups, that they are seeing that just exchanging the information, they are always thinking that they are coming just to learn new theory or learn new tools, but those tools were easier through the experience of exchanging that information with other parents that are living same situations. And another thing that I'm seeing a lot is that precisely in 2023, we were checking that what we have is an epidemic of loneliness and isolation because of the pandemic, and that was still an issue for our kids, but it's the same for us as an adults. And this year, something that the Surgeon General was focused on was also that parents, we are under pressure, and it's difficult for us to try to solve all the needs that we have, the basic needs that our family needs, but we are forgetting about our self-care. And you can memorize or have a memory of the moments where your kids, or even now with adolescents, the days that you are having a horrible day, that you have a terrible headache, or that you are anxious, or why they have to behave in the worst way. Why? And it's because the way that you are providing a non-verbal communication, they are sensing that something is wrong. And they behave like with a little bit of anxiety, like something is not right, but they don't know what it is. So if you are able to communicate with them and show them what is happening to you, it's going to help them to stop that like a snowball saying that you are in a bad situation or bad moment, but your kid started to behave in a wrong way and you started to react, and it's like getting worse. No. And just having this opportunity to talk with others, to get this help in the community and getting the support and the resources, it's also providing a role model for them. Like I said, we always provide like handouts for our different topics, and we are always suggesting to parents that they can share that with their teams or with their co-partners. And most of the parents, they are saying that the kids just get more interest, and it's a way to communicate with them. So we are just opening a channel, but it's showing them that there are resources in the community, and even as an adults, we need sometimes to find help and support. So that's what they are going to understand and learn. And maybe with all of the resources that you show us before that they are having at schools, they are going to be more willing to accept that help and to go and ask for support. So I just wanted to say that one of the things that you can do to be part of the PEPS group is just, well, registering one of our PAT groups. We have a newsletter with a lot of information about the upcoming groups, events, and even articles that will be helpful for you. We have also, we are in social media, so you can follow us. You can ask for a specific PAT program for your community. We started to doing this virtually because most of the families, they were saying at the beginning that they didn't want to have the group with people that they knew, because precisely like I said, it's difficult to talk about challenging situations about an older kid. But now a lot of our parents, what they are looking for is getting this program with parents that are closer to their kids, that they have like an affinity and that they can have something to share, because it's like creating that community to learning things to support our kids. And if it's in an environment that is going to support our kids better, to do it together. So We are open to all the questions that you have. Like I said, this is one of the quotes for one of our parents, found that learning alongside and making connections with other parents of teens is such a powerful way to increase my skills and confidence as a parent. Just knowing that we all encounter challenges and can face them together makes it easier to handle the challenges. Getting support, even if you are not in a path group, trying to find someone that you can just trust and share what is happening will help you to vent and seeing things in a better and different way. So thank you so much for all of being here, for Bellevue School Foundation and Bellevue School District for the opportunity to provide this information for all of you. Well, now I think I'm having these two slides with some of the information of the upcoming virtual groups. We have 3 in-person groups. We have to confirm exactly. We just finished one group here in Bellevue, and we need to find another place to have that in-person group for Bellevue as well for January. So that is to be confirmed. And we also have an upcoming 2-part event with PNW Parent Education. They are going to have the first part that is more focused on the academics, and it's called Time Management, Learning the Art, Science of Communicating with Teachers and Breaking Tests, Quiz and Projects, Preps, and Module Chunks. That's at the end of January. And we are going to have the second pre-event that it's Tools for Effective Communication with Adolescents. So these are just tools and more information and ways to connect and learn more tools. Thank you so much. Here is my email address. Swarnima Swinkumar is the Program Innovation and Expansion Manager. She has been also connected with BSF. So any of those emails, you can reach us with more questions. Thank you so much.
So much, Gloria. I'm sharing all your resources. I didn't know, so this is great. So thank you. And I also want to thank Jared and Allison as well. As a parent, I really feel better knowing that you're there. So thank you so much. And I want to take this time to open it up for questions. So if anybody has, I think we're going to stop recording now. So we can stop recording the session and we will go into our question portion. So if anybody has a question, please raise your hand for our guest.
One in the back. I think Corinne has one.